Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel and podcast. I am your host today, Kris, joined by Scott and Iain. Boys, let's have a little chat about Friday night. So, last game before the international break, before the lads jet off to Dubai, we were looking to back-to-back wins. Scott, we managed it, an unchanged side, Newcastle United, 2-1 winners after coming from a goal behind. So, we'll dive straight into it. Eddie Howe names an unchanged 11. I think his hand had been forced with the injury news which we got about Almiron. Were you happy with that, first of all, in regards to the players that were starting the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about in the preview, it would just be, same again because it works. You don't want to change your winning mentality. You don't want to change your winning side. And, as long as there's no injuries like there hasn't been to the starting 11, touch wood, keep them going until, either a mistake is made or a bad performance happens or an injury occurs. So, yeah, more than happy with that. Bench was a bit weak, but you can only play with the players that you've got. And unfortunately, the two players that we would probably have on that bench to make it a bit stronger, and Gordon and Almiron, they're both injured. So, you use the players that are at your disposal, and worked out in the end, didn't it?
It did, mate. We'll talk about a certain player that came off the bench later on in the show who had a great impact on the game. Iain, the only other concern was Fabian Schar. Fabian Schar pulled out of the Swiss side because of pain in his foot. And we're in two minds, really, if that was him preparing to have a little bit of a break away from playing football completely after this game against Forest. It looks like we're all right to think that because obviously he started the game. So do you think that was a wise move from Fabian to step away from international duty?
As a Newcastle fan, yes. I'm very selfish. I've always went club over country, which a lot of people, I think, if it's their own individual clubs, they'd be the same. But to be honest, after what we were discussing, I was surprised to see him when the lineup came out. I thought, given what was said, that it would be like a complete break, and he'd have this week and then the international break to sort of fix his issue. But good to see him in the back four. Obviously, we've talked so much about this season and how well we've done is because we've had a very, very settled back four. So yeah, good to see him in there. Although I think within the first 5-10 minutes he went down and got an injury.
Yeah, Ayew made a challenge, and Ayew done back-to-back challenges like that. One on Fabian Schar and maybe one on Trippier. I can't remember exactly who it was, but he clattered both of those players. But we'll talk about some of these challenges in just a moment because there was a lot of these challenges going in throughout the game, and we'll highlight a couple of them. Scott, the game panned out, and if we just pick little parts of the game up and the key moments of the game to go through, it was a dominant performance from Newcastle from start to finish. I would say maybe a 10-minute spell after we conceded the goal where Forest tails were up. But other than that, we weren't really. It wasn't backs against the wall at all. Far from that. And it was one of those performances where, similar to what we have been doing throughout the season, where we're dominating games, and it's just that moment in the final third which we're lacking. Hence, we'll concede the goal first of all. We'll go through that goal which we conceded. It's an error from Sven Botman, an error which we don't normally see from that player. I think maybe the back four, well, back five really, are taking turns now to make a defensive error. So let's hope that's the last one gone. But he just gets it completely wrong, doesn't he?
He does. I mean, it's a ball over the top from, I think, Shelvey plays the ball as well, which makes it a little bit worse as well. And it doesn't look, I don't think he gets a shout from Schar, who's quite far away from him as well. And I think it's just a case of he doesn't know what to do. He's in two minds, and before he knows, the ball's at his feet and he has to do something with it. So it's not even like he hits it powerfully either towards Nick Pope, and it seems to be a trend of we can't pass the ball back to Nick Pope on that side. It always leads to an error. But
seems like he was just catered up for Nick Pope to control the ball, then start again from the back.
I think he thought players were closer to him than they were, and I think he also didn't think that there was another player on the run with Dennis. It was Dennis, wasn't it? I do have to say, though, and I was talking to Iain about this just before we went on air, I think Trippier could do a little bit better with tracking his man, because Dennis just runs through the middle of Schar and Trippier like there's nobody there. Not saying that there's anyone to blame there, but if you put a bit more pressure on him, he probably can't do that little dink that he did to get the ball over Botman and Pope. But, you know, again, nothing on Trippier. Obviously, he's only playing the game that he sees, and Dennis is quite a fast player, so maybe he can't keep up with him.
It's one of those runs that you very rarely see as well from a striker that takes that chance, because 9 out of 10 times, that's going back to the keeper, and the keeper's just hoying that up the field. But Dennis takes a risk, and it paid off, and that's not taking anything away from his finish. Yeah,
quality finish.
You know, you'd be happy if you scored goals like that every week. Those little dinks are always nice to see. You know, not from the penalty spot. I'm not a fan of that, but anywhere else on the pitch, if you're going to do little dinks over the keeper, then you deserve to score in my eyes. It's a nice little goal, that. Yeah,
it was a fantastic finish, and Sky Sports, they were orgasm over that one. Orgasms all over the shop. And I think it was Jamie Carragher maybe on commentary last night, or Gary Neville was one of them, maybe both. But they were waxing lyrical about that finish, and like I said, it comes from a defensive error, but it was pinpoint. If that's one of our players scoring that, shirts off, man, absolute shirts off. After that, Iain, Forest dominated, I would say, like I said at the start of this, about 5-10 minutes of that, but didn't really punish at all. A lot of possession, not really dangerous in front of goal. I think throughout the game, I had 2 shots on target, one of those being the goal, and another one later on in the game, which Nick Pope makes it a great save with his foot, I believe. But we'll move on to our goal first of all, so our first goal. And let's just chat about Isak here. How good of a player is he? He's far superior than what I was expecting.
He's absolutely unreal. I think it was it last night or this morning, and people are going to take this the wrong way, but he's got the qualities that Henry did, where I think the Sky Sports pundits were saying he's not just a goal finisher, and there's been quite a lot of debate whether he's going to be an out-and-out striker, where he fits in, but he's got so much more quality than just finishing. He can play, he obviously shifted him out wide, and he's dangerous running at people there. You can play sort of behind a striker, you can play up top. So he does fit sort of across the front 3-4 areas. He's quality. Like, he
goes looking for the ball at any opportunity as well. He wants that ball.
He does, even in the second half, where, because obviously we've Howe said that he can't. He's not fit enough to play in Eddie Howe 90 minutes. Obviously, he got that yesterday. Even when he looked a bit leggy, he was still showing for the ball deep into the second half. But I thought it was a really good bit of link-up play. I think it was possibly Willock wins it back. It might have been Murphy, but there was a nice interchange of play on the right-hand side. It's a great ball over by Willock, and then
I think it works its way up the field. I think it goes from basically the last few steps of the play. It goes from Maxi as a weighted pass to Willock, then Willock gets it and digs it over towards the back post.
And it's behind him, so to rearrange his body, and yes, it's come off his shin, but it's a quality finish. To put it back across the defender, miss it, and took it away. It's absolutely quality finish. And to be honest, I was saying last night in the house, I felt like we needed a goal before half time. We absolutely battered them. We hit the bar twice. Willock obviously had a decent chance in the sort of first quarter of the
couple of scrambles on the goal line as well.
Yeah. So I thought Walton lucky not to even be in front going into the half, but we definitely needed it, and it come at a great time for us and a very, very poor time for them. Yeah. And then obviously the second half was very much the same. It was pretty much all us.
Yeah, if you're scoring a goal, Scott, especially equalising goal, that's exactly when you want to score, like Iain said. Just a couple of moments before the half-time whistle, and for us, like I said, apart from those 10 minutes, it's done throughout that half, and Forest were just waiting for that whistle, just trying to basically secure their goal line and stop anything coming at them, and they just couldn't stop that throughout the game. And I think Sky Sports tried the best to take it away from Isak, that finish. I think a lot of it was in jest mind, but they were trying, and for him to get any sort of power in that shot as well, being so far behind the ball, it helps that he's about 8 foot tall, and his legs are about 6 foot of that. But it's a great finish, it really is.
Yeah, I mean, watching it back, he could stick his head on it. Maybe you don't know how his momentum's going, but considering the goal he scored last week with his head, you'd probably expect him to try that again. But that's what I like about Isak is I don't think he scored the same goal. Like some strikers will have like a couple of goals that they go to, like they're
a trademark
box and that sort of stuff. But he just anything like he'll just stick a leg out, get power on it. That's it's not just the fact he's getting the ball. He's actually getting a bit of power behind it. So I think Sky Sports did downplay it a little bit while the game was going on. I think afterwards, maybe when they look back on it, it was a different story. But yeah, I mean, it's another assist for Willock as well. That's 2 in 2 games. So
we'll have a chat just while you mention him, Scott. Let's have a chat about Willock. Yeah. Man of the match for me. He was outstanding in that game.
Yeah. Well, I think had Isak not scored 2 goals, Willock would have been my man of the match. But you've got to give it to someone who scores 2 goals and performs the way Isak did. But yeah, I mean, Joe Willock or Willockinho, as we're now calling him, apparently, outstanding. I mean, he's turning back into the player that we first got on loan, and maybe he's even exceeding that. Eddie Howe's got him playing in this kind of. It's almost like a free roaming midfielder where he can go left, he can go right, he can, stick in the middle if he wants to, and it just suits him down to the ground. And I think if England didn't have the personnel in midfield that they have, he'd be braying that door down at the moment, trying to get a place in that squad. And he's still only young. Give it another season or 2, and he probably will be a regular in that England squad just because of the way he's playing.
The only questionable thing with the England squad, Scott, I would say Calvin Phillips got a position in that team. Yeah. He's hardly played at all this season. And exactly. I know Willock has had on and off games, but the last couple of games he's been great. I think maybe we're obviously going to be biased as Newcastle fans by wanting our players on these like sort of international games, apart from especially for our country. But I think, like you mentioned there, maybe it's a little bit too soon for Willock. I think if he keeps these performances up, then 100% he's in for a shout next tournament. Of course he is. But what I liked from Willock last night was we saw the side of him where he was getting frustrated in his own play at times as well. If it was a misplay passed or he hadn't timed anything correctly, you could see him get annoyed with himself. And it's something which I haven't noticed before. And I like to see that from a player because it shows that they feel as if they can do a hell of a lot better than what they just did in that moment. So there's room for improvement. And I think Eddie Howe hinted at this last week, saying that the likes of all the midfielders in our team, they've all got room for improvement. Yeah. And if there's any sort of improvement left in these lads, I can't wait for the future if they stay at this football club.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a young midfield if you think about it. You've got Joe Linton, Bruno,
the spine of the team,
Willock,
Scott.
And Sean Longstaff. I mean, I don't think any of them are over 25. If I'm not mistaken, maybe Joe Linton's a bit older. I don't know how old he is, but
not sure off the top of my head, mate.
It's a young midfield, and if they're playing together and they're growing together, and also if we bringing in personnel who will take it to that next level, they're going to feed and grow off those players as well. So yeah, I mean, midfield it's been our strongest point for quite a while, and well, that's centre of midfield, and I think that's only going to get stronger as, like I say, as those players mature and get better.
Yeah, Eddie Howe's going to have a bit of a headache.
Great to see.
He's going to have a huge headache now with these 3 central midfielders performing out of their skin at the moment. Joe Linton's back for the next game against Man United, and let's see injuries. Obviously, we don't pick any injuries in this pre-season. I always say this mid-season break that we're having in Dubai. Everything goes fine. Joe Linton's fit and available. What happens then?
I'm glad I'm not Eddie Howe. Just what is not. I don't think it's like, I don't know the term to use, but we were concerned a little bit that we lost a couple of midfield bodies in midfield and forward positions, and we're thinking like, oh well, if we get an injury, like we'll struggle in midfield. Everyone that's come in, they offer something different, but they're playing out the skin. So you've got now, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, Longstaff, like. He does the dirty work. He doesn't do the glamorous work. If you lost him, you'd lose that. Willock, like Scott was saying, has that free role, so you would lose that. Bruno's creativity, and then you've got Joe Linton, who's an absolute battering ram. So it's a if you're picking, obviously one of those has to miss out, and that would be a very, very difficult decision. Obviously, I think it depends on the opposition that you play and what Eddie Howe thinks the setup will be and who he thinks will suit best for who we're coming up against. But
I think we'll have to remember, Iain, as well, that we do have flexibility on that left hand side, where the likes of Joe Linton could go on that left hand side, or
so could Willock.
Yeah.
But then again, that. Saying that at the minute, obviously we've lost Mickey and Gordon, so maybe it's a kind of a good time to do that because we've got the options of putting them out wide. But like I say, the 4 centre midfielders we've got, they all offer something different, and they're playing out the skins. I'm not Willock's biggest fan by any stretch, but I think the last sort of 2-3 games he's been absolutely outstanding. And the same goes for Jacob Murphy as well. We've talked about this time and time again where players are getting a chance and they're grasping it. And I genuinely never thought Jacob Murphy would be one of them, but he was exceptional last night. Same again last week against Wolves. I genuinely can't believe I'm saying that. And then obviously I think we'll touch on it in a second. Elliot Anderson coming off the bench. I thought he was exceptional as well.
Yeah, we'll stay with you, Iain, just because you mentioned his name. Elliot Anderson comes on. It's a half-time substitution. A lot of fans thought it was because Maxi was having a poor game. I didn't think Maxi had a poor game whatsoever, to be honest with you. But it's a hamstring injury that we're looking at. Eddie Howe said after the game that he felt something in his hamstring. That's why he was taken off. Elliot Anderson came on, and if I'm being honest with you, I don't think I've seen enough of Anderson to have an opinion on what sort of player he is and what he offers to the team. But if he's performing like this, Iain, coming off the bench, and it was a big game for us before the break. It's a big game, away game as well. He's done really well. He shocked me.
He's done amazing. I think sort of pre-season and at the start of the season, he had those cameos where he looked half decent. I particularly remember maybe his pre-season against Benfica. I thought he looked quite intelligent. But coming off, like you say, it was a big game, especially going behind and to come off the bench. And when you don't have a lot of creativity, obviously St. Maximin went off, who is one of your more explosive players that can create something. For me, it was a bit of a shock. I thought he maybe would have put Wilson on and played 2 up top. So I was a little bit sceptical about Anderson coming on, but he's grasped that opportunity with both hands. He looked so dangerous even in the first sort of 5-10 minutes. He had that, I think, the volley where the ball got played over and Navas made that amazing save.
Navas made a few great saves in that second half, to be fair.
He did. He had another chance as well where I thought he was a mile offside, and then I thought it was a foul, but he's lost his foot. That was a very intelligent run, sort of across the back four. And then obviously he's disallowed goal, which we might touch on. Obviously, I know you'll go into a lot more detail on Monday night with the lads, but I just thought his all-round play, Anderson, it looked, because I think he's only 19, it looked like a lot more mature performance than a 19-year-old who has only had, like I say, a handful of appearances. So I was very impressed with him.
This is at the point where I want to say that and this is why I don't mention ages, because as far as I know, Elliot Anderson might be 47, and we'll always get this completely wrong. Somebody will look at it and be, he's 22. But if we touch on the disallowed goals, Scott, it's Isak again, isn't it? That I remember. Isak's on the deck, and the ball. They try to clear it, don't they? And he's obviously knackered, hence why he's still lying on the deck at this point. And he's so quick to stand up and do this turn to find space. That was
ridiculous. That bit of skill, by the way.
Space from nowhere. Then that ball as well just lifts it in towards the back post, and it's a fantastic header by Anderson. How he finds that space in that bottom corner, the only place where the keeper's not getting it, and he buries it. And so, in my mind, straight away, I'm thinking it's a goal all day long, right? Yeah. Then obviously VAR step in, and you know for fine well, as soon as VAR step in, they'll start trying to crush your dreams. Longstaff is in an offside position in my mind at first. Yeah. But then when we're starting to see the analysis of it and why he's determined to not be offside, I'm thinking, oh, well, it's a goal all day long. They can't overturn this. They physically can't. Then to my shock, as normal, Scott, the official get it completely wrong and rule it offside. Talk me through what is going on in the minds of was it 3 officials, 4 officials these days?
I wish I knew. I wish I knew, because I watched the highlights again this morning and I'm still scratching my head as to why it was deemed offside, because the only argument that you could have that it was offside is that the 2 Forest players who touched the ball weren't playing the ball. It was a deflection, but you watch it back, they both swing for that ball. They both, it's not like one sticks his foot out and it hits him. He swings for it and kicks the ball. The other one does the same thing and kicks it off Longstaff.
It's far from a deflection.
It's not in a million years is that a deflection. It's them trying to clear the lines, and I just don't understand how that isn't the second passage of play. I don't understand why it was brought back, and it's harsh on Elliot Anderson as well, because it was his first goal, his first kind of senior goal in the Premier League. The header that he hit, he just wants it more than the defender. You could just tell the defender's just in no man's land, and Elliot Anderson just coming in and just wants it more than him. But as soon as the referee goes to the screen, you just kind of know. It's only happened a few times this season where the referees went to the screen and kept the same decision that he had.
I think it's slightly changed, Scott, as well now. I think since the arrival of Howard Webb, I was looking at this, and Howard Webb only wants the on-field referee to go over to the monitor when VAR believe he's made a mistake.
Yeah,
that's when they want him to look at it now. And even I think the commentators were saying in that game, I don't understand why a referee is being called to the monitor for an offside decision.
Yeah.
I mean,
the phrase gets coined clear and obvious error, and that the fact that nobody can see why it was ruled offside indicates that there was no clear or obvious error. So it's beggars belief, but I mean, let's be honest, that referee had a shocking display through that entire game.
From start to finish.
If, a couple of weeks ago, I can't remember the player's name, but the referee's name, but him and VAR, who got removed from his position because of the decisions he was making, they need to do the same thing with this guy, because he was absolutely shocking. There should have been, 2 or 3 yellow cards in the first 20 minutes. That didn't happen. It was ironic that the Forest fans then started chanting to him that he doesn't know what he's doing, when one decision didn't go their way. I mean, that was a joke as well.
What's ironic as well is I thought because I think the first yellow card was for Dennis on Trippier. I thought that was probably a harsh yellow card. I thought it was maybe a foul, but I don't think it was a yellow card. But then you had, like you say, Ayew left challenging a couple of times. Shelvey was doing his best to try and break Bruno's ankles.
We could do a full podcast on Shelvey's challenges last night.
Even that, I think it was that Ryan Yates that went off as well. They just looked like they wanted to basically like kick 7 lumps out of it. And I think he's got in his mind, well, if I give a booking early, I'm going to set the tone for the rest of the game. But for me, that shouldn't matter. And then even in the first half, when I think Bruno gets bundled over, there's a possible shout for a penalty there. I think the next 2 or 3 fouls are the exact same foul. They're just outside the box. Like Willock in the bottom corner, when the ball was running out, he got penalised for literally less than what the foul was on.
Yeah, it was not long after the foul on Bruno in the box as well.
Yeah. So, like I say, I just don't get it how it's literally the exact same foul, sometimes even less. But just because it's in the box, it's like you have to literally like drop kick someone in the head to get a foul. And like you say,
sometimes
the
we don't even get
that. Burnley away. But for me, the offside, like the literally Carragher Neville went through like the sort of the bullet points of the rules.
Yeah,
and literally everyone pointed that it was offside. It's
he ticked them all off, didn't he? Never went down there. It's not that. It's not that. It's not that one either.
It changes to the referee's subjective opinion that the player hasn't went to play the ball, but anyone with a footballing brain, like
that's not just one ref though.
I know this
he got
VAR,
called over. Yeah.
I know. Like even Joey, who's 6, who literally used Sabutio to tell him what offside is. He went, well, the Forest players kicked it to him, so how is he offside? I was like, and he's 6. Like I just
loads of little Ryan Frasers on a pitch.
Basically, yeah. I didn't get it, and thankfully, it's not sort of ruined the game. But like I was saying, like even the decision, I think it was maybe Lee Mason that Scott was on about before with the Arsenal game.
Yeah, it was.
Like that could cost in Arsenal's, that could cost Arsenal the title. Like for us, it could cost us a European spot if we missed out on 2 points. I get that there's the rest of the season to get those points, but that is irrelevant. Like
if you flip it around, it could keep the likes of Forest in the league if they hadn't got a point out of it.
Exactly. But yeah, I thought he was absolutely horrendous, like a horrendous display.
It's lucky for the referee though, Scott, that Newcastle went on to win that game, because if not, there's going to be a big spotlight on him. And I think because we did get 3 points at the end of the day, and now people, yes, we're going to talk about and debate it, but he's probably got off the hook with this one.
Well, I hope he doesn't. I really hope that the result of the match doesn't matter and that it is looked at, because, like I said, it's like Iain said. I mean, teams staying in the league, teams winning the league, teams getting into the European spots. There's a lot of money involved in that. Like I think it's like 30 million you get for Champions League just to qualify. Like that's a lot of money for especially teams like us who are trying to boost our revenue as much as we can. But yeah, I mean to turn it back on the penalty. I mean, you could tell from I can't remember the player's name, the defender, but you can just tell as soon as that hits his arm, his head's in his hands and he's on the deck and he's like, "What have I done?"
Straight away.
You can almost also see, and you mentioned the referee, like relief from him, just like, okay, good, okay, well, I'll give this, and it was instant, and there's no thinking about it. I think VAR looked at it a little bit, but it wasn't there. And I do want to I do want to say that Trippier did very well with Navas. He obviously knows him from La Liga, and he knows what he can do when it comes to penalties. So he picks up the ball, he stands at the spot. Navas is doing whatever he's doing to try and put Trippier off, and then just as the penalty's about to be taken, up steps Isak, and yeah, great penalty, like slots it home, shushes the keeper, shushes the crowd.
Can I jump in? Did you think Trippier was going to take it? Because I did.
I did. I put in our group chat, I was like, does Trippier take penalties? I don't think I've ever seen him take a penalty in my life.
Then somebody that's listening or watching to this might be able to tell us why, but Sky Sports put the stat on Trippier's penalties, and he had taken 2. So he missed one and scored one.
Yeah.
And the yellow ball which he had scored was hitting the crossbar, the outside of the crossbar. Yeah. So what's happened there? Can somebody tell us, or is that just Sky Sports getting that wrong completely?
Well, again, I think we fooled everyone there. I think, even if Sky Sports are putting that up on the stats, obviously they must have been scraping around to get that out, because they're like, hang on, Trippier, where's that button again? Like it's just not something you'd expect. But like I say, I thought Trippier also probably had a little word in Jacob Murphy's ear about Renan Lodi, because he absolutely annihilated Renan Lodi the entire game. And I used to think Renan Lodi was a good player, and I actually thought we should have went in for him, in the postseason, because he's that good. But Jacob Murphy, of all people, made him look very, very ordinary. And I don't know if that's just him having an off game, or that's how he's been against Forest, because I haven't seen him much of him this season. But yeah, I think credit to Isak. He gets his second goal, well deserved as well, because he's had a blinder.
The pressure on his shoulders as well, mate, in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, he's the type of player where that doesn't matter. You can just tell he's quite a cool character, and he just slots it home. Like the keepers, I think he even sends the keeper the wrong way, which is even nicer.
Well, usually that's where he puts his penalties. It's like if you're looking at the goal, I think the two or three that he scored for, he usually goes. I had to go in the garden. I didn't want to watch it. It was horrible.
To be fair, I'm not going to lie. At that point, I was sat on my sofa watching it, and at the point where just before he hit it, I had to stand up, and I like stood in the doorway. Don't know why I'm stood in the doorway, like pop my head around the corner,
just to obscure your view a bit. But no,
it'll make all the difference.
He's done well. He's kept his composure, and like you say, it's given 3 huge points going into the international break. It's put right back in the chase for fourth spot. Because obviously, I think the next game's Man U, and I think if we'll beat them, then we'll go above them. But obviously, I think Spurs
goal difference
as well. Yeah, the goal difference really shocked me. Like we've got the 3rd best goal difference in the league.
Oh, we're steamrolling.
Because of the clean sheets early on.
Yeah. The accumulation of clean sheets rather than points. But Man U shocked us as well. I think there's only something like 6 or 7. But like I say,
they just got beat by 7.
Right,
It's conceded 7 of the week. That didn't help.
I think City have done them by 4 or 5 as well this season. I think they've had a high score game.
Brentford did as well, if I remember.
Yeah.
4 or 5-0. But yeah, it's put we're in a very good position going into the international break. Obviously, we went through that little patch. Hopefully, we're out of that now. I think we're saying before sort of the Wolves game that these 2 games you would argue are not must wins, but you want to take as many points out of them as you can. Yeah. So let's give her a good platform to go into the international break. Hopefully the likes, because obviously Miggy's going to now be out for 6 weeks, allegedly.
Gordon, Eddie Howe's injury list. It's just like his diary for injuries at the minute, where the news comes out, oh, Miggy's going to be missing for 2-3 weeks. Oh, as soon as Eddie Howe gets in front of a microphone, 6 weeks.
Which means it'll be 10.
But like I say, it gives that little chance for the likes of Schar, for the likes of Gordon to hopefully recover a little bit better, and then have a little bit more sort of options from the bench. Because that was what my concern was yesterday, looking at that bench. You had Wilson, who, let's face it, isn't in great form. And I think that was maybe it. And then, but like I say, been proved wrong. Elliot Anderson came off the bench and he's done great.
Richie did his part off the bench. Yeah. I mean, he didn't do much, but he
getting a few cameos at the minute, isn't he?
Running. Yeah, I'm surprised how much he's been playing. Honestly, I didn't think we'd see him this season, but injuries, like I think if the injuries hadn't happened, we probably wouldn't see him as much as we have done. Hats off to him. It's probably his last season with us. I don't know what his contract situation is, but he's probably going to move on in the summer. You'd imagine with Matt Ritchie.
You can imagine Matt Ritchie be happy to drop down the ranks as well. Matt Ritchie would be happy to drop into the Championship if needs be, and I think he probably will. And he'll have a field day just like he did last time in the Championship as well. Only concern for me, the only concern for me is the fact that this break is coming up now, and we debated this when the World Cup was coming around as well, whether or not it's a good time to have that break because of injuries and things like that. For me, I think we realised after that break, I know it was 3-4 week one compared to a week, but we just didn't hit that run again until obviously now. But for me, I would rather just keep on going with the games, let them keep going despite the injury concerns, and I would love it if it was Man U next weekend. But it is what it is. It is what it is. But thanks, boys, for enjoying this one. We've got to start thinking of what we're going to do during the week now, because, like we mentioned, there's no match. We'll figure something out. I think Canny Chat will be getting recorded this week as well.
Wednesday, I think, wasn't it, Ian, that we're doing?
Wednesday.
Yeah, we're doing Wednesday.
So if you haven't listened to Canny Chatter yet, those that are watching and listening to this podcast, Canny Chatter is an audio-only podcast, which is recorded by these 2 lads here, so Scott, Ian, Joe and Harry. And they just go over relevant Newcastle United topics. My favourite part of that last week was the food one. As always, I love talking about food, especially ways to improve the food at St. James's Park as well. And I think it was you, Ian, that mentioned Dixon's. I've always wanted Dixon's.
Oh, love a Dixon's pork pie.
I would love a Savoy dip at half time.
Oh, Savoy dip.
I think Harry said Savoy dip, didn't he?
Oh, did he?
No spoilers, by the way. Go and listen to it.
It's because he sat at me, work for God knows how long. I must have just been tuning his lug off all the time. Plenty more stuff coming on the channel. If you want to like the video, it means a lot to us. Become a subscriber. Costs you absolutely nothing to do that. If you want to give it an extra bit back, it's $2.99 a month to become a member. You get access to videos, so early access to those videos. You get access to the Telegram group as well, which is just like a WhatsApp hub for members and fellow Newcastle United fans. Watch what you're doing. I'll see you on Monday night. Ta-ra.
Bye, everyone.